You're whenever you are. Uh, 6 o'clock. So it's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to go ahead and call this regular meeting of the Danville Board of Directors to order. We have one member on Zoom, so we'll go ahead and make some quick introductions. Taking part of the chair of the board.
Dave Cole, Vice Chair.
Molly Buchanan Clark.
Dave Billy, secondary principal.
Sarah Welch, elementary principal.
Mark Tucker, superintendent.
Thomas Edgar, student representative, and Ben Warren, board member.
One on Zoom.
Melissa Conley, board member.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Before I move too far forward, are there any additions or changes to the agenda? We have information ready for all these things down here. We're gonna table anything?
No, nothing.
I didn't see anything in advance on the HVAC repairs while I was asking.
Well, I want to talk about the strategy for addressing that. I don't have full.
All right, okay, that's fine. Okay. So with that, I'll go ahead and move forward to approving the minutes. The first minutes I'd like to talk about are the April 18th minutes, received an amendment. It's pointed out to us that it was not noted in the minutes that Beth Cannell did some strong work for us. And so I sent around a little proposal to amend those minutes this afternoon. If everybody in the board got a chance to look at that, and I'll entertain a motion to add that information to the minutes. Someone,
Is that the building advisory?
Yeah.
Minutes?
yeah, the wrong minutes from the packet for the amendment. That's okay. Motion from Tim?
Yeah.
Right, motion from Tim to amend the minutes as I presented, with also in that exchange, we also fixed Eric name to correct the spell. Pleasure. No, please, we can do it. I need a second on that to get it done.
Second,
second.
just to be clear,
He's
just to be clear, you're adding,
only the red.
so you're adding meeting moderator, Beth Cannell, second session. Beth led the meeting and the various exercises to help the group work better as a unit.
That's correct. They'll be added to the minutes, and we're going to change Eric Hewitt's last name to be spelled Hewi. You didn't spell.
Oh.
Melissa spelled.
Oh.
So
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Eric.
didn't even know.
we're going to fix
Sorry
it.
about that.
Wow, did you be that bad?
I didn't mean to, Melissa.
So I have a motion and a second on fixing those minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carries. The May 2nd minutes were our regular May meeting. The minutes are attached. The minutes were done. Does anybody have any questions about the minutes? Those are the minutes where we met our new upper school principal. Where we talked about some things. We did the TAN recommendation. That's from Tim. Motion to approve.
Dave will second.
Dave Cole seconds. Anybody have any questions about those? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving those minutes, May 2nd, 20 regular meeting.
Aye.
Hi.
Next, one more, the May 17th Building Committee minutes. I was not at this meeting, so I'll abstain from the discussion here. I hope you guys read through these minutes. Molly wrote them up. Does anybody have any questions about these minutes? I'm entertaining a motion. Tim's going to motion to approve those minutes. And then we are waiting on a second to continue the discussion.
Dave will second.
Dave will seconds. Is there any discussion on approving these minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the May 17th Building Committee minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
I don't abstain, motion carries. So that is minutes. We're moving down to administrative reports, and there's a couple of things the superintendent needs to tell us about his, but did everybody get a chance to read through his report since you got it last week? Yes. All right. Good. And then, Mark, you were going to tell us specifically, talk through some of the stuff about, in this, anybody have any questions about the family income data collection?
Yeah, I think that was the longest section of the superintendent's report I've ever written. We've struggled across the SU this year collecting family income data. The problem's been exacerbated because it's continued to go out as a free and reduced one data collection form, and some families have been saying, why do I need to submit this? And we're already getting 3 parts a month. the legislature in not this past session, but the year before, when they approved the weighting study changes, mandated an improvement to that process, so that data collection process, and gave the agency a year to get that together, to have that in time for FY25. It's not, I'm not certain at this point that they've actually done that work. And I've been in touch with Chair of House Appropriations to ask her if she knows what the status of that is. Somebody in the agency in a meeting let slip that it wasn't done, and that person didn't think it was going to be done for another year or two, which is not acceptable. Bottom line for us, I don't know how I can't tell you today how we're going to change the process, but we have to get better at collecting that information. And we're looking at a number of options. We're looking at putting it online to see if that will improving access to it will help. One of the comments that I've heard a couple of times from in a couple of different settings is that when you send that form out in the beginning of the year packet, it's this thick. Somebody said to me the other day, by the time I got down to that thing, I was out of gas and I didn't even pay attention. So the old way of sending it out on paper and hoping people will send it back is we've got to get better at that. There may be a change to that form. I'll communicate that to the board, obviously the principals. I do want to be clear, though, that the registrars in the building did everything they could to collect it. They followed up with families multiple times, to the point maybe in some cases affecting families. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to fill it out, we can't go to somebody's house and make them fill it out. I have my own questions about why we have to collect the data that way, when I think the state has this data already. It resides in the tax department. And I don't know why they can't just draw it out of the tax department database, but I don't run the agency or the tax department.
Sure, they can do it for tax collection, but they can't do it for.
I think the data's there because it's the same, it's based on what's the total household income of the family. And they have that. And one of the things that I've heard a number of times is that we have the greatest difficulty with the families that we most want here getting that form, because they just struggle with a whole bunch of things in their lives, which I don't mean to be pejorative, but they don't fill those forms out. They don't do a lot of things that we'd like for them to do to help their students in the school. So it's a work in progress, and I'll report more to all the boards when I have a better idea of how to do it. But it's very important that we get those forms in. The other thing that I wrote about in here, which Danville we managed to dodge a bullet for Danville this year. The Waterford is losing its funding for title funding for an interventionist because we couldn't qualify them. The agency for years has not been distributing the Title I allocation correctly. So there's two things: you qualify for Title I, have to qualify for Title I. And then there's an allocation of Title I funds. So think about a big bucket of money that comes to the SU, and then it's distributed to the districts based on their ratio of free, currently free and reduced lunch percentages. But what the federal rules have said all along is that the schools with the highest percentage of poverty, as reflected on that percentage, are supposed to get a higher share of that money. So the allocation rule was supposed to be, you give 125% of a school's allocation to them, and then you go down to the next school and they get 125% of their allocation. But what happens is that money starts to disappear. So it's a fixed amount of money that comes in, and the net effect of that is the schools with the lowest percentage of eligibility may not have any allocation left over. They surprised us with that 3 weeks ago and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we haven't been doing this right, and this is how it's supposed to be done. So we need to, for the CFP, Consolidated Federal Program for FY24, we are going to do it the right way, and that means that some schools are going to get a smaller piece of the allocation." So we just barely, we had to scrape together some Title I money to keep Danville eligible, give them a small piece of Title I money, and then that meant we could redirect some Title II and Title IV money to pay for the title grant funded positions. But that's tightrope walking, and we can't count on that for next year. So, ideally what we should have is a system that's 100% accurate across all the schools, and then you let the chips fall over the day. But We've got to get better at this. That's all.
Can I
Yeah,
jump in a second? So we're also ending our waiver. We've been on a waiver with the state and
next
through
year.
next school year. So that means that with whatever system that they're trying to put into place, it is crucial to get this implementation in the fall.
Right.
For the 24-25 school year.
Right.
Crucial.
So, we got, Des is on it. She's been, we've got a lot of assistance from the people in the agency that deal with CFP to help us try to solve the problem, but they couldn't. And they figured out a way to make it work for Danville for this year, but Waterford is still not gonna have a position funded. So that'll be a fun conversation with that board next week, but it is what it is.
Regarding the form, for my 2 cents, it makes sense to pull that from the packet into that. Because it really is it's a 40-page packet where you have to write your adjustment.
Yeah.
They did a great job. I feel like they sent reminders, so please fill out this form separate from the packet. Like I
Yeah.
remember getting those reminders.
Kathy, Jenna and I,
Yeah.
and Larry
Yeah.
pushed it really hard.
It wasn't for lack
Sent
of
out more.
trying.
We sent out other copies when we didn't get it back, so.
Wasn't for lack of trying, but it's, and the thing is that, this has always, traditionally been about free reduced lunch eligibility, and everybody's getting free lunch now, and that may continue for the foreseeable future. They put $130 million into feeding kids, and all kids in all belong schools next year. And I think that, that lobby is going to continue that pressure to do that. Okay. And as long as the state has the money, there's a lot of support in the legislature for doing that. But it also impacts a weighting study. If they're using that same data to determine the poverty level in the community, if you don't have accurate poverty data, if you're understating the poverty level in the community, that could negatively impact the weighting calculation in terms of adding equalized pupils. I don't have the numbers in front of me. The preliminary numbers that we saw for next year for FY25, Danville is going to see an increase of around, what I tell you, about 20 students. All other things being equal, what they did was they took the FY24 budget and said if all of the other factors were the same and the weighting study had been in effect, you would have had 20 more equalized pupils in FY24. Now, the yield rate and the CLA rate are going to continue to fluctuate and affect that. But it's a good illustration of how Danville is potentially going to benefit from the weighting study changes when they're going into effect for FY25 budget cycle. So we might, it may not be 20, it may be, it may be 15, it may be 22, but it's an increase. But we want the most accurate poverty data that we can have, because that's a big factor. Poverty and rurality, which that's a function of geography, and that's not. It is what it is. Danville is where it is, so that's a geography calculation. But the poverty data is important, so it's ongoing work, and we're gonna get better at it.
All right, are there any other questions for the superintendent? When I want to talk about. Move on. Next, we have the student services report. In the student services report, you see we still need a middle school educator for Danville for next year. And the applicant for that position. Middle school special educator. We need a middle school special educator at Danville, one of our 2 open positions.
And we have another one that was added since these were printed for triple special educators, which is shared with Barnet.
Don't worry about that. I'm talking
I'm
to
not-
somebody.
But it's, I know.
That's in the principal's report. This one's in the student service. This one's in both, but the middle school special educator is in particular.
We have one potential candidate who we're trying to get in to meet with on Friday. This is somebody that Ally interviewed apparently for a different position and has special ed experience, has a general ed license and is working on getting a special ed license.
Okay.
Absolutely. In public.
Okay. What about the full languages?
I have a meeting with a candidate tomorrow. She's coming in at 11. We actually, when we talked about preliminary
Okay,
See if that not happen.
okay.
See.
All right, no questions about student services past that one? Thank you, student services. Principals report, we just covered one of the other open jobs. Do you have any questions about spring fling? How cold it's gonna be for the J term? Anybody questions about that?
I know, we could have flip flop last week and this week for all the end of the school year events.
It was a nice day today in the community meeting. That was fun. Community meeting with a building full of parents and kids.
It was wonderful. It's the biggest group I've ever seen.
Really?
All right, questions for the principal? You have, I have a question. Do you have an idea of who might be able to take over student council with Beth leaving?
Yeah, it's gonna be, it's
I
gonna
think
be,
that's one of those polls that you don't necessarily see. That's one of those polls that's really gonna exist.
and Nick is also stepping down from it,
I didn't know that part, but yeah, there you go.
so.
It's gonna be a big. Yeah. It's a big thing to tell. Also good about that, we had a great prom and Zach Baker is excited to be prom advisor again next year. Wonderful, like, prom advisor here, I was like, really good thing.
All right, no questions for the principals? Okay, moving on. Thomas, you have a student rep report?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Thomas? Thomas has a big presentation in a couple of minutes. If you have any questions about a student rep report, you can let him know now. It is, in the packet, it's on page.
Right up there.
Page 8.
Yeah, backward.
Last evening for us?
Yeah.
Aw, live on sometime.
It's on the back and we'll.
Quick, Melissa, about a Marty's.
Well, listen, I think like 4 other meetings with Thomas, but I did something. I give a bunch of meetings with Thomas. All right, so, got it. All right, we got it. Okay, so in here you mentioned your final project update, Thomas, and then you're gonna give us your final project here. Are you excited to graduate? Are you excited to move on? Congratulations on being our valedictorian. That was also, I'm not surprised. I'm honestly not surprised. I'm proud of you though. And we want to thank you for all your good work here. We want to thank you for your growth. Well, thank you for your growth. It's been great. It's been great to watch.
Bravo.
So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But still, you got work to do yet, so prepare yourself to get your presentation. on that. Your graduation depends on, does the graduation depend on this presentation?
Yeah, I didn't sign this form.
Yeah, his
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Moving on, the curriculum report is back, and the curriculum report will show you all of the education courses, again, that the teachers have available, that they can take and they can push through for reimbursement. And there's plenty of things, there's plenty of ways to continue to learn, and it's great. It's great to know about.
Tell us that.
Running right out, sign up for them too.
It's great to know about. Even, but, I mean, even if it's 3, even if it's 1 class, there it is. But can I fit this one out on a Tuesday? It's right to see that there's stuff on a Tuesday afternoons that are virtual.
Can I ask, what's the reaction or participation or?
Off of their list, I can't speak to like how many click on
How many
what
click-throughs?
they,
Yeah.
but people definitely appreciate what they're sharing because some of these pieces only come across. Like up at their level, some of them don't even make it to us. So people appreciate their newsletters very much.
But it's safe to say that with the incentivized education program that we have contractors, that we get a lot of participation.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
yeah,
that's, it's, and this is just, if you see other things that's an avenue, but
Yeah.
that's why you incentivize it, so that they can get it paid back and they can continue their education, right? Yeah, they need to do it
yeah,
anyway.
whether it's workshops or for credit.
Like it. Okay. There we go. So we'll move on to board business then, and the first one we have to talk about is the culinary teacher position. And there was a snafu in this one that we have to discuss with the way we changed the policy last month. And I'll let Mark start. Unless you want me to start, Mark.
Go ahead.
So I got contacted about a person for a job. And the person was Suzanne Potheiser, and Suzanne Potheiser already works here. And I got specifically contacted. Mark said, we want to hire Suzanne Potheiser with ARPA money that's left over from Mr. Schilling moving back to the principal's role, so there's leftover money. We want to hire her on for next year to teach the culinary class. She already works here, so I thought he was asking me, do you think it's okay to use this ARPA money to hire Suzanne Potheiser? I did not understand in that sentence that she was getting a provisional license because she's a para. So she's getting a provisional license because she's going to be a teacher. And I said, yes, that sounds great, because I know Suzanne Potheiser and I know how well she's been received, and I know her from something else. And then about a week later, Mr. Schilling asked me, he said, did you approve this without the board? And I said, yeah, but I didn't realize she was going to do a teaching job. And then we clarified that, and I went back to Mark, or Mark came back to me and said, this was for a teaching job. So I'm coming back to you, and I have to, this is my mistake specifically, because I didn't follow up the question. Was this a teaching job? Was Suzanne Potheiser being hired on for a teaching role that's being created? So this is a new position that's going to be funded with grant money, for which there's already been a contract that I was not allowed to approve, that I did, however, approve. So specifically, the fault is mine. And so if anybody has any questions about where the error occurred with this new ability to approve hires between meetings are. And if you tell us a little bit about Suzanne, that'd be great to start with, because I'm going to ask you to approve going backwards the hire of Suzanne Potheiser into a teaching position with a provisional license to teach the culinary program at Danville.
Yeah, but if it's gonna be any hand slapping, I'll put my.
Inside.
They have some responsibility.
But I think that just the whole thing with
Whack, whack.
Suzanne's awesome.
What do you got?
Yeah. Suzanne's been awesome too. Suzanne came to us as part of actually we had a gardening workshop, Charlie does. And she came in and said, hey, by the way, if you ever need anybody to teach any cooking, I could help you. And we did, because Max of English taught one cooking class sometimes. And didn't want to.
But we had a separate plan to have somebody cook, but then that's the person that's the seventh cook that's always working in one of the schools. There have been many plans to have somebody teach this
Right,
class.
there's some talk about how to do it. Anyway, to cut to it, Suzanne is phenomenal. She came in, she had a class of 14 participants this year. Those kids are still talking about cooking. They're still cooking. They love her. They love her. They love what they're doing. She's been just a phenomenal educator. And we're really seeing a huge revitalization of the program with interest in cooking. She's focusing on local food. She lives, his homestead up on the hill, right between Danville and St. Johnsbury. She is a former food editor for 7 days. So she has a lot of cooking skills as well. And she also
We did an episode of Chopped last week, and we're given 2 ingredients and a mystery ingredient, and produced amazing food.
yeah, like did I Facebook about that?
I
didn't
don't,
look sure.
I used to, I don't remember.
Anyway,
But it was very cool.
these kids are really it's come a long way in church. She's also partnered with a lot of people around here. So we are talking about partnership with spiritual. The middle school combines food literature and food. She and Zach and Nick, as part of the Danville Works program, are talking about how their programs go. It's great to see kids this excited about it.
And then next year,
This is- yeah,
and then it would end.
So then we have 1 year funding for this.
Right, then we'd have a conversation about the 2 years.
We have that conversation about the entire Danville work program. So
And it's a part-time position.
Yeah, part-time princess.
So what would be looking for is the approval of a part-time culinary position for Suzanne Potheiser, start next year, and she's as a licensed teacher. I suppose that's a para. She's getting a provisional license.
Yeah, just to clarify again, not a para, but she was a long-term sub.
Okay, I didn't.
Not
I wasn't sure how we had it classified.
But classified as a sub.
Oh, when she's been in her program, she can sub.
Because it's only been one class.
I thought she was. Anyway,
Anyway.
I have that mistake.
They're not paying her what we should be.
So I'll make the motion to approve the hire of Suzanne Potheiser as a part-time culinary.
Okay.
For next year.
I will second.
I have a motion on that. I have a second. Does anybody have any questions? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of hiring Suzanne Potheiser as a culinary teacher, say aye.
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 You might as well. All right, thanks guys for fixing my mistake there.
Oh, you want food?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Show off their skill.
Yeah. Open house, but get around with the open house, because I'm tired of making spaghetti.
She just catered prom. They had like pulled pork, local burgers, homemade buns, these cupcakes that were, but yeah.
Wow,
Good stuff.
fantastic.
Open house, yeah. It's good. Yeah. Gotta chat on the thing.
Well, Actually, this is Melissa.
Oh,
She's
Coming
dropping
over
out.
Dole Hill.
She'll be there in a minute. Okay. She's coming in no small part to the executive session. So moving on, new teacher hires. I think there's one, is there one sitting out? Or did that one did I also approve that with my new special?
No, we're caught up.
It's in the
We're caught up. I didn't know.
Yeah.
We talked about it's still open.
Yeah, the one that we put in in the principal's report was Ann Hatch, for the 5th through 9th grade math.
That's the math intervention. So Ann Hatch was also recently hired for the 5th through 9th grade math intervention program. She's one of the ones that we just added to the budget this year. And that's been done, so there are no new additional hires. And if there are, there would have been in those positions. We'll move next to the building lighting project. And we got this late. This came in today from the superintendent. We got some numbers into us here at the very end.
So this is a project to replace some remaining fluorescent lighting in the building with LED lighting. February of 2024, you won't be able to buy fluorescent bulbs in the state of Vermont. So so the idea here is to go in and replace or retrofit fixtures depending on the nature of the fixture. A lot of this.
So Mark, can you share this on your screen for the people on the Zoom?
Yes.
It's titled lighting project in your email.
Yeah, I know that doesn't.
There's more you need. All right,
Um,
let me share my screen. I have it.
It's almost.
Clayton said you can just let him share the screen.
There's 50 units, so.
you're gonna share your screen. Wait.
I can-
Yeah, you can.
But
It's not letting you. No. Do the photos.
Nailed it.
Okay. So what happened with this is we put this out to bid. You're supposed to solicit at least 3 bids. We put it out to 4 different contractors. 2 of them declined immediately because they didn't have time to do the projects. We had initially gotten 2 responses back. This one from Pierce Electric and another one from Auburn. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
I got these yesterday, the Auburn and the Pierce one, and looking at it, the Auburn one didn't make sense. I went back to Sean and said, please explain this to me. He went over it again in detail and he said, well, they missed 86 fixtures. So they had given us a proposal that totaled up to $96,000, but they had missed a number of fixtures. And Sean went back to them yesterday and said, hey, you didn't cover everything that we need. If you get us something, by tomorrow morning, we can consider it. And they came back and said, yeah, we can't do it this summer anymore. So we have this one proposal with a qualified vendor. who can do the work and is ready to do the work. He gave us two different proposals. The first one was to use LED retrofit kits in the existing fixtures. I had a long conversation with Efficiency Vermont about pros and cons of retrofitting versus replacing fixtures. And without getting too deep in the weeds on it, one of the problems with doing retrofits is that you end up putting in lights that are the same size. You're basically changing the bulbs and taking out the fluorescent ballast, but you have bulbs that are LED bulbs that are the same size as fluorescent bulbs, and those are a lot brighter. So if you came in and swapped it, these are still fluorescent. If you just put LEDs in here, it would be like you're under searchlights. Okay, very bright. So the alternative is to replace the fixture, and so that's the one that we want to go with. It's actually cheaper to do that in the long run to replace the fixtures, and there's a longer life expectancy for the fixtures. If you do a retrofit to an existing fixture, what Efficiency Vermont told me is that then if that fails, then you're probably going to go back and want to replace the basic fixture itself, and then, so now you got that extra cost. So this is a proposal to convert the 2 foot by 2 foot fixtures in a lot of the places, not everywhere, but a lot of the places, to cut down on the lighting and the intensity of the light for the fixtures. And it's $114,180. My recommendation to the board is that we pay this out of the capital reserve. Now, there is the follow-up conversation this afternoon with Efficiency Vermont. There had been incentive programs specifically aimed at fixture replacement and retrofitting. But what they said was because of the scope of this project, so many fixtures, they would treat this as a custom project. There's some information that I have to give to them that they will go through, and as long as the replacement fixtures are on their qualified list, they would take the net. It's based on the number of existing fixtures that you have and the wattage of the current bulbs, and they'll do a usage calculation for that. And then they'll say, well, okay, this is what you're replacing it with. You're going to cut down your electric use by X amount. And based on that, we can give you a rebate or incentive money based on that. So I'm going to get that data to Efficiency Vermont to send me what I need to format an application to them. The point of that is that there's a possibility that we'll get some of this money back. So the process is to file this now, get them to review it, and if they approve it, then they will set that money aside and say this is Danville's money, and then they'll give it to us when we tell them the project. So I can't tell you exactly how much money, can't tell you 100% for sure that we'll get any of it back. I think good possibility we'll get some of it back. I don't know how much, but whatever we get back, we can just turn around and come back to capital, save it for another capital project. So I think we should do this. We've talked about this. I guess we got talked about in the building committee in one of your meetings earlier in the spring sometime about doing this work. This will get this done. We know Pierce Electric. My recommendation is that we move ahead.
All right, so the superintendent's recommendation that move ahead, we have talked about this more than once at building committee meetings. And if anybody in the building committee can feel free to chime in as well. This was on Sean's, not his top item on his priority list, but definitely second, and one of the ones that becomes much more pressing when the clock turns 2024, that it becomes a glaring issue. There's one set of people that are willing to do the work. There's a possibility that we don't have to spend all this money, and we have this money sitting around to spend. And we know for sure that in the next year or so, we're not making any drastic changes to how the building is shaped. So this lighting issue can be solved with this action. And
Is the last bullet point, is that saying it's gonna fill in the rest of the tile that will need to, if you need to decide?
I asked that.
Okay.
I checked
I
that.
just can't really.
Oh, and you gotta leave it open.
Instead of leaving holes, I just wanna make sure it's in the budget.
Yeah. I asked the same question.
I did that, Brian, I scrolled down to find it.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so like
Yeah,
in this
that's
one, if they go to if they go to 2x2s here, then there's 2x2s and one wonky tile, but there's 86 wonky tiles, and so then there's 86 wonky tiles, not as right.
Right. And the assumption is it's not gonna end up being a one-to-one replacement because probably there's not much brighter. So that's part of what they'll figure out.
Asked a couple of times. Sarah and I have been really upfront with Sean about wanting to make sure that we're actually like measuring light bulbs. Because even to go from, one of these to a 2x2, it's still bright, like you got the cafeteria there.
So are there 2x2s at the cafeteria?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Too many of them.
Are there any questions from the board of the building?
The only question I guess I have is, sorry, Dave.
You're up.
Would doing this trigger any sort of code issues with the electrical at all? Perfect.
Right,
Great.
we're replacing repair, we're trying to stay away from that as best we can, so.
Using existing wiring.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
my only.
it's always a concern. That's the couple of things that we can do. We're hoping to stay away from that. All right, Rob, Dave,
That was my question.
there you go. That's the one glaring concern that we have.
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
In terms of other potential emergency fixes, what would be next on the list for that, in terms of what might go?
Repairing something in the existing HVAC system if it failed, fans on the roof.
As
CRUs.
too.
Yeah, we have to make sure until we can get around to actually doing the full HVAC retrofit project, we gotta make sure that the existing system continues to run. I would say that would be a high priority thing, but that would be in the category of a repair.
So with the triggering tree, the other piece of that though, would also be, right now, because those motors are running all day, every day, it's a significant electric. We almost double what we estimate piece all the time. So
You mean the air, the air, right.
yeah, because you have old motors spinning all the time.
So with the lighting system that we're talking about here, there is, there's really no chance that we're gonna overburden our electric system because we're using less electricity there and less.
We're using less. We're gonna save some money.
But I'm not worried about overburdening the system. That's a concern in any of these things that in the 1937 wing, it might just get out.
The challenge is actually the switchgear. The old switchgear is too robust. There's resistance from it because it was originally designed to support resistance wastewater heating when they went through and put electrical heating in the school and short out 10 years later. So the system can more than handle it. Okay.
So I would make the motion through the allocation of $114,180 to the building lighting replacement project here from the capital.
One second.
Got a motion and a second to approve $114,180 from the capital reserve on this lighting project. Are there any questions here from the board? From the building committee? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of making this motion? All in favor of this motion? Please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries, and that's some summer work that we go. And so that is that one. And now the other one that we talked about from the building committee bringing over here was to start looking at HVAC repairs. And we may not have numbers yet, but it sounds like Mark wants to talk about.
So the last numbers that we had were from way back in 2020 when we did that emergency repairs. And I didn't send this out because it's hard to read, but we're looking at that time, we were looking at about $780,000 to do the ERU work. But that was assuming that we were going to reconfigure put fewer units in and move them around. So there's it's not an apples to apples comparison. What I asked Sean to do and what he's trying to get proposals to do is, what if we just go and fix in place what the existing system, what we have, do a one-for-one replacement. If we don't know what else, we don't know what else we're going to do with the building, but we know the ERUs and the motors and all that stuff up there. So, and the other thing is that we need a control system, a better control system. Because right now, there's no,
There is none.
there is none. So there's no way to mediate temperatures in individual rooms and stuff like that. So that's what we're trying to get accomplished. Let's just say for discussion purposes that that was a $700,000 project. So one of the things that got mentioned, and maybe Nikki and I talked, but well, then we should be looking at putting that in the budget for next year. I strongly recommend that you do not put a $700,000 expenditure line item next year's budget. If you want to do something that big, we need to go to the community and ask them to give us permission to borrow the money to do that. Okay. And that could be done in one of two ways. We could decide that this is something that we will put that off until town meeting next year and have a line item on the warning to ask the town to give authority to make take out a loan to do that. At this time, because we don't have anything plans in place and we're already into the construction season, it doesn't seem feasible to me that we're going to get this work done this summer. I don't know how we would get it done as a practical matter. If you wanted to do it before that, we could put together a proposal, put together and do a special election, put a vote before the community to ask them to authorize the money to do this work, which is something that we've already done here because we did that for the emergency repairs to the HVAC system in 2020, but we ended up not needing to execute the loan because
We also didn't do the vote. We didn't do the
we
election.
didn't go to the vote.
No, none of that.
We did something.
We agreed to go to a vote and then Dave got efficiency Vermont.
Okay,
The
all right,
money
so we
you
didn't get
didn't
that
decide
far.
on.
We were getting right, you're right. So we were getting ready to go to the town and ask them to pass in a special election budget item to fund that, and then Efficiency Vermont came forward with the money, thanks to Dave's homework, and we didn't have to do that. But you could, if you wanted to get the money ahead of time, or for some reason we were convinced that we could get this work started and do it, late summer into the time when the snow flies. I'd have no idea what this, how long it would take to do the project at this point, because I don't have a proposal. The contractor would have to say, this is what we're going to do. And if I started today, it would take 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, I don't know.
I would assume based on some of our other, like just small budget contract stuff, that it would probably be at least 6 months out, just based on manufacturing.
Yeah.
And, unless they happen to have DRU units sitting around ready. For the piece of
Yeah.
parts.
So-
I would assume it would be a ways out.
The curve on this pushes this out into next summer, best case anyway. But it should still be done as a separate, $700,000, for 10 years over a 10 or 15-year period, either through a bank loan or through the bond bank. You could probably get the money from the Sussex Savings Bank at a decent rate. They've been pretty good. Just for example, we would put it out to bid, but it would be a separate article on the warning for the next election.
And so that would, in that consideration, that is a loan that then gets added to the budget after the fact.
But, well, right, and so then what you do is you execute the loan, and then for the next 10 or 15 years, or whatever the term of the loan is, you're going to put into the budget a principal and interest payment for that year.
The town's doing that with paving right now, so similar way they had a 3-year loan in terms of paving project that was $300,000 just now. So
Okay.
if we were to borrow some less than $1 million, that doesn't preclude us from taking other action. It doesn't preclude us from.
Doesn't interfere with anything else that you might want to do. It would be a separate must-do project. It's one of those things that, we should do sooner rather than.
Well, we were talking about this, but we talked earlier about priorities. Sean has told us multiple times in the building committee meetings that if he's looking at things moving air, we don't do. We don't do legally, we don't do properly, we do very poorly. And these things. So
Our level of neediness for the state assessment, so a school building needs, would that affect the amount of money that we get for fixing if the state is gonna give money for fixing buildings. we'll-
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, if you can tell me what the state plan is going to be for funding the school construction, I can answer that question, but they don't know. So, I mean, I can talk about that for a minute. I'll tell you what I do know about it. They're supposed to have the inventory work done this fall and a report to the legislatures for next session. When that report is done, the state treasurer is already committed to and apparently has some thoughts about where to come up with money for school age of construction. Did I say that right? Yeah, school age of construction. My understanding is that what they're going to do with those reports is they're going to go through with that inventory and then they're going to prioritize work across the state. So there are going to be schools with a greater need than Danville and schools with a lesser need than Danville. And so they will, there'll be some kind of priority, and the intent of the priority is to say, if given that we're not going to be able to fund everything all at once, how are we going to fund it over a period of time and who gets it by
But that's where, if you don't mind me saying, Mike Pichek had said that he's looking at the Rhode Island model. That's what he presented in the Senate
Yep.
Education, where if they took like a half a billion in bonds to try to disperse based on need. And so that's like 2 years out anyway. So depending on urgency around the issue.
Right.
Yeah. And that's even if, that it gets approved. There's like a lot of ifs in the mix, but like you said, we'll know more for what the school needs are. Yeah.
So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying we don't know enough about it to make any plans based around state aid to school construction.
2 years would be too long anyway.
2 years would be too long. I think we shouldn't wait.
Yeah.
So the whole intent, what I'd hoped to bring to the board tonight was a proposal and a financing plan. And I don't have that because I don't have numbers.
So do you want to table that for a month?
We can table it for a month and hopefully for the next meeting.
Maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move that one down to whenever we meet in July. And then we can move on. Do you have any questions before we move on? Moving on. This one is the library renovation proposal. And this was in the packet. And then I don't know who to start with on this one. I see our librarian is online as well. So if she can, might want to move up and be able to talk. If she's just viewing. Is she viewing? Is she talking? Who's talking?
We could talk, and I think if Mark, you promote Lydia so she can chime in, that'd be great.
I gotta find her because she.
Yeah. So this is a proposal that came from the high school teachers who work in this side of the space as well as Lydia.
Can I check this screen sharing for a second?
Yeah. Go for it.
Go ahead.
So Lydia has identified. So this is both a shelving and space facilities issue as well as a how to better use space issue. Lydia has identified that the shelving is collapsing. If you look around, you can see they're starting to. Some of them are bowing here. These are ones that don't have very many books on them. Some of the ones back here have quite a few books on them and are, we're leading to the point where you have books stacked on them on the floor. So that's one piece. The second piece is that there are 2 to 3 high school classes that happen during the course of the day on the side of the library. Because the space is open across, the high school classes are distracted by elementary use of the library and vice versa. Also, this general location the way it's laid out makes classes quite challenging. It's easy to hide and the staff back over here. It's easy to corner. It's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not seeing it. Not who's living it. There's some good ideas. So the idea is that we would put up temporary partitions that would create an actual classroom here on the high school side. Movable walls, not building anything, building stuff is bad. Right.
Yeah, I want to make it clear, like, we're not talking a renovation, anything permanent, so it's not gonna trigger anything. It's all temporary.
Yeah. A reduction in outdated parts of the collection. So some of the books in this middle section that haven't been checked out in over a decade would be reduced. The middle shelves here would come out. And then there would be a combination of flexible shelving and flexible seating implemented here that could rearrange the space quickly in the classroom and then use it again, as well as involve the building trades class next year to build replacements for some of the outdated, inefficient, and really hard for kids to access book bins that are around the libraries. I'm not sure how that came to be to get that like reach into the bin to find the books. But Zach Baker is really interested in working with Lydia to have that be a focus on building trades class next semester or next year. And this is sort of what they're looking at. We've got petitions, that's just a part. Flexible seating and shelving would look like this. It's new, it's modern, it's efficient. It's expensive because it's actual library stuff that I'm talking about, like going to IKEA or what's that Wayfair. Yeah, buying stuff at three. We're actually talking about design for libraries. Yeah. And that's the proposal that we would use unrestricted surplus funds to make this happen. Couple other pieces of it are, it would improve the quality of the English class that's tucked in that room with no windows back there. And it would turn Rachel Keach's room from what it is now, which is like sort of an office or personalized learning, but not well used, to a space that has VSAC College Included Planning Station. VSAC already given us a grant for about $5,000 for some computer resources for online career planning, as well as bring some of the stuff that's used, kind of like the clean maker space stuff, printing, Cricut, stuff that is like now double occupying the cooking room. We're coming in here and talk the library. Lydia, what have I missed?
Can you hear me? So I don't think you missed anything, Dave. I would just add that in terms of the makerspace portion, I have been doing some really fun projects with our 3rd and 4th graders this year with 3D printing. And there are a variety of ways we can get them engaged in some more STEM-focused activities earlier with access, where they're not having to share a space with high school students, as that makes them a little bit less productive. But I think the main point being that, yes, we basically would gain a high school classroom for a pretty low expense in this regard. And the shelving, as you said, is pretty critical. I've had mornings where I've come in and entire shelves have fallen in the night and all the books are on the floor. So I do feel that there's some level of urgency to it. I thank you so much for considering this proposal.
So the issue with the shelving has existed since no one was in kindergarten. The previous facilities director was aware of the problem and said it wasn't a problem. Said there's nothing to be done. The shelves had to last for long. And I've seen shelves falling in this building. I've seen books that have been in here for 50 years that nobody's touched. I've moved those books around. The culling of the library that's happened already has made the library a better space, but it needs to be updated, and we have to be creative with how we teach our kids because we don't have the space.
What's the current balance of it?
Minus the 114.
That was coming out of capital. I don't have that.
I'd like to ask how much is in the Brainerd endowment?
Yeah.
Because Brainerd, forgive me for not knowing the first name, built Charles Brainerd built the library up in West Danville. There's a memorial library in North Danville, and this would be a perfect project.
That's the first I'm hearing of that. Who controls that money? That's the town?
It's one of those many. Remember back we had those school endowments, total endowment balance of about 5,000. That's one of
I
those.
think that Mike went on that one.
A long time ago, but this would be a very appropriate use of those funds to do something like this.
My friends are something.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Scan it up there, yeah.
You know, little tiny library.
Yes, yeah.
And Brainerd also pays scholarships.
Is there ever like library grants? That would be great.
Area.
Okay, as of, well, we spent some of this, but at the end of FY 22, in end of June of 22, we had almost 514,000 in unrestricted surplus.
So based on, Mark, you shared. After the February board meeting.
Yeah.
You had shared it out, and so based on the numbers then, the Brainerd account is just shy of 79.9.
Brainerd is an unrestricted fund.
Yeah, unrestricted, it says it's given to Phillips Academy and Danville for the purpose of maintaining the school or academy.
I think that's a pretty logical.
I know.
Service.
Sarah, when is the capital school? That was in February this year.
That was what was shared out right after the
It would be
February
nice
board
to
meeting.
List
So,
that number
what
for the
Or
record.
the capital reserve.
I don't,
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back and revisit
I
that.
don't think I have that.
The bulk of the lighting should be coming out of the unrestricted. reserve.
Unrestricted. So can you, is it possible, could you get us a list in the coming days here from Mike of what is encumbered now out of unrestricted funds with this motion that we carried? What, and then what exists in all of these funds? So that we have a fresh copy going into the spring. So if we just spend 114,000 in unrestricted, we just encumbered it rather than spend it.
Well, you can go back and amend that.
Yeah, that's a good number.
I should have done that.
We should have done that out of unrestricted reserve. Which I did.
Capital doesn't have, capital has $36,000. I said that was.
We need to go back and revisit that.
So we're gonna move back up there in a minute. So let's continue talking about this one since we're open on this one.
79,902.
There's $79,902
And
What's that
48
amount?
cents.
in the Brainerd account. This proposal here for this measure is $21,660 to do a little bit of library revamping on the fly. And some major reconstruction of the shelves.
Mhm.
Does this cover plywood for the building and trades class?
Yes, the
Yeah.
building trade class is given a budget to do it as part of this.
Okay.
About 2,000 there.
So while we're on it, I'm sitting over here and there's a gentleman next to me.
I'll make a motion to approve $21,660 from the Brainerd Endowment for library improvements as listed.
I have a motion for $21,660 from the Brainerd Endowment for library improvements that's listed. I have a second here from Melissa. Are there any questions here? From the board, any questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of this motion, 21,660 from the Brainerd Fund. Please say aye.
It'd be
Okay,
nice to have a plaque.
always nice to have a thought. All right, motion carried.
We can actually break the plaque and some of the mix. Later cuttings or different. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, going back to the lighting project, that
I misspoke, that should have been unrestricted reserve.
should have been from unrestricted.
And I did confirm with Mike that there's sufficient funds to cover
Unrestricted, right, unrestricted.
and unrestricted to cover that project.
And so what we need to go back and do is we need to amend the motion that was made, and it was 114,190, I believe. 114,180. So we had a motion for 114,180 and voted on and agreed on. That came out of the capital fund, which does not have that money, but it needs to come out of the unrestricted fund. So I would be looking for an amended motion that asks for $114,180 for the Danville School lighting project. I have that motion from Tim.
Okay.
I have a second from Molly for the amendment. Any questions? Any comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? We all know what we did. We all know why we did it. Motion carries. Okay, so this covers the library fund. We're spending the money. HVAC repairs, no. All right, so there's two parts of the 70 fund request here. And you want to do the first part, the clarification, or the first part, the main?
So clarification first.
So I got two things on the agenda. I'm gonna put the clarification before the request for the funds.
Yeah.
In the last meeting, at the end of the meeting, we talked about, we approved some 70 money for outdoor sports equipment. And a member of the public asked if we could look into the basketball courts up there that are part of the playground. And so we looked at the basketball courts that are part of the playground. There are nets on there, so that was immediately not an issue. But the basketball courts are part of the playground and they're not part of sporting event equipment. And then I'll turn it over to Dave.
Right, yeah, Randy talked with Marvin Pritchard at great length about this. Marvin Pritchard's feeling on this is that the 70 fund was established for athletic facility. And that basketball court is not an athletic facility because it is not used for competitions. Other athletic events. They can he recommend for perhaps looking into.
And so hearing that, it didn't make any sense to pursue that because we have unencumbered funds. If we want to protect that a different way, I don't know if it became an issue other than just stemming from public comment. I don't know if that became an issue. I don't know if you think that there's a need.
It's in pretty rough shape. That's true.
So do you guys want to seek some bids so we can discuss it going forward? About fixing the playground itself, fixing the basketball court itself? Do you want to seek a legal opinion about whether or not the 70 fund covers the basketball playground, even though no sports are played?
We want to do both of those. I think we want to know what it's not going to get any better.
It's not going to get any better.
So at some point, it's going to become a fix it or rip it out. So I think we want to do that. And then I also think it's a valid question because nothing else in practice space, whether it's a more practice or not, it's a space for student practice. That's would be the argument I would make.
I have seen kids practice.
Right.
I've seen kids practice basketball there.
And so I would,
Right, they
Right.
can get in there whenever they want in practice.
right, and so I would also seek that legal opinion.
So can we pass that to you, Mark?
You can, you're gonna have to tell me what documents we have for an attorney to review.
I don't know the answer to
I
that.
was gonna say, I think Dave's on it right
I'm
now.
working on that.
Okay, so I can take what
Institutional
Dave
knowledge
sends
here.
me and I can ask, our attorney to.
Yeah, it's a wise move.
I think
I'd suggest it.
So I don't think.
You might not get it before the end of the meeting.
That's fine.
That's
None
fine.
of those
I don't know.
things- none of
Whenever
those
you
things
get
are a
it.
motion, none of those things are action items as of now. It's just if we want to pursue a legal opinion, the documents exist somewhere and we'll find them and then talk to whichever lawyer is relevant here. And then additionally, if you guys want to look into the playground, let us know what it's going to cost.
And to, I mean, and again, to just be clear, the board approves that purchasing. It's not outside.
But and to be clear, as for playground, that wouldn't qualify. As far as the basketball court area.
Mhm.
That one.
I'll go a step further and say we don't have text.
Indeed. We do not have
That's
to-
it.
Yeah.
I would think that.
Yeah.
Just take the facts.
Okay, so we're going to take no action on that clarification.
doesn't use.
You know,
We have those clarifications. If Dave can find that documentation, if he can't, we'll look it up someplace else. It might exist somewhere else. And if you guys can rally up that documentation. Sure. So we can go to the lawyer and then pass that if we're looking into the repair, we know what it's costing. Moving on from that, the actual 70 fund request for this month, which was just for some field maintenance, look like. Dave can share the screen again.
I don't remember how your sharing works.
I forgot.
You know. All right.
a little rusty with your Zoom.
Just hold up, hold clock. This is the next 70 fund request. This is just summer pump maintenance and pressure washing. But it's pretty common simple stuff. First, $14,081.
And that you- what did you already do?
In the packet.
It's not good.
Oh,
I cannot speak to the FYI because I don't.
How much money? is in this?
About 600,000. Yeah.
Well, that's a ballpark is great.
This,
Sounds like enough fun.
Yeah,
right, you only spend the interest.
Right.
Right.
So what?
yeah, right. Yeah. Fair.
So yeah, summer building. So that's the 14.
Great. Make a motion that we approve the 70 fund request for $14,081 as presented.
So I got a motion and a second regarding the 70 fund request for field maintenance for 14081.00 out of specifically the 70 fund for field maintenance. Are there any questions from the board on that? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of 14081 for field maintenance, please say aye.
Hi.
Okay, motion carries there.
Can I answer a question, a procedural question, if there's some discussion about using school district money or school endowments to erect a structure on property that doesn't belong to the school? Does anybody have an issue with that?
I would have it, I would want to know, we already have structures on those properties that we have erected. So
Okay.
there's so in that case, I would probably point you to precedent.
Yeah.
Is that we own, those dugouts are our dugouts, those dugouts we maintain. And so the precedent is that with this money, we put those properties onto town,
Okay.
those buildings on town property.
All right.
And then they become our buildings to maintain, and the town is largely silent on the matter.
That's gracious.
Indeed, indeed.
Okay. I just, anytime we cross
Yeah,
municipal boundaries.
so this is where there's a similar 70 fund. It's not called 70 fund. It's called the Kathy fund. The Kathy money in the town. They have some similar money for some similar work. So they
Okay.
understand where the money comes from and why it comes from where it comes. And
Okay,
they largely stay silent on a facility that they don't use,
okay,
in my experience.
all right.
Okay, so that's that. Now, I'm gonna move on to this next one to discussion about the building committee, and so we have several of the building committees here. I talked to the superintendent about one of the questions, and we got a clarification that we'll present at the building committee about the North Danville School. And we got the North Danville School as a possibility to put preschool kids was pitched out as one of the initial ideas when we said there are no bad ideas. Somebody pitched that out. My immediate response to that at that meeting was, that's a bad idea. And it's not viable. All the school people moved out of that building 30 years ago, and there are people on the committee that were there 30 years ago and said, I went to school there 30 years ago. And I want to ask them, I wonder why people stopped going to school there. And it's because the building is in worse shape than this building. And it doesn't need any of the same. We had Mark look into it. The principal asked the superintendent to see about looking into it. It's been looked into. It's not super viable. We'll bring that information back to the building committee. It is really specifically in great disrepair and in need of a great amount of repair itself, for which there's no money. And it lacks a lot of the necessary things. And there are a lot of reasons why that wouldn't be. And so once that came up, and that was looked into, the rest of the separate conversation with the superintendent I did about the building committee and whether or not it might be prudent, since we have one bit of action that we're considering taking that's come out of the work, which is the HVAC discussion. We have a second batch of information that's come out of the work that is the lighting project that we all have basically agreed to in that group as well as some necessary work. And then we have the big pause where we know that we can't decide on anything yet. And especially because the state is now going to meet and we're going to see if the state can come up with any information about whether or not they're building preschools, because they bumped up against this statewide. There aren't preschools to mandate preschool for 4-year-olds inside schools everywhere. And they had to drop that from their legislation this year. That was just fully dropped because there was so much pushback, because people don't have space anywhere in the state to start sticking 40 extra 4-year-old kids in every building. So because that was stopped there, it's possible that what comes out of this meeting is, as Allison said a few minutes ago, that the state goes into hot. And the state says, let us borrow a bunch of money and then the state starts throwing money at the problem. And so because of that, 18 of us sitting in a room eating pieces of sausage and trying to get super duper creative over and over again based on $0 might not be the best use of our time, and specifically our paid employees' time. And so Mark's conversation with me was not about the volunteers, which he understands volunteering. He thanks you all for your volunteering. Not about the board members, because you get 300 bigs, right? $300 every year, but specifically about the staff. And this is Sarah, this is Dave, this is Sean McNamara, for sitting in there unpaid and getting peppered with questions over and over again, and whether or not it's prudent for them to do that through the summer, or whether or not we, after this next meeting in June, we get back together one more time and we talk about where we've gotten and how we've come to an agreement and where we see some bumps in the road, then maybe we take a break for a while and wait to see what the state says. So that is the discussion that I'd like to have here tonight with the members of the facility committee as well. But that is the reasoning, that's the rationale, and that's why the superintendent has involved himself here. And he specifically is worried about the expenditure of the time for the paid employees for doing that for $0. And it seemed really valid to me. I also got one more. I also got one note from Tim that says I'm not available for the next one. And whenever you schedule the one after that, it's the summer and I'm a teacher. I'm probably going to not be doing that. And it's really valid, right? So everybody knows the time.
Not what I.
The 20th. The next one is the 26th.
Yeah.
It's just not on our building
So-
calendar, so
I would add that I'm fully in support of a dramatic pause for like a July August pause, especially makes sense for our paid employees. But I do think the work that needs to start happening, and maybe it's something that happens at a different level. It's the thing that we didn't quite get to on our agenda last time was really a vision plan. So what is our vision? What is our 5-year plan? And that's not work that has to be done in July of all. But I think that we need a vision, we need a plan, we need what is it we want for our community, and how do we find out what the community wants and get people on board for that? Because the ideas that are being thrown out there right now are being like regional high school big or whatever that looks like. And so that work needs to continue in some capacity. And we should just have a vision plan. We should have a step plan for where we want to be within our building, like our physical structure anyway, as time goes on. And so I do want to make sure we don't lose sight of that piece of it in that for planning for the future.
All right, and to the board, Allison was up first. She's going to go.
Oh, yeah,
and
either
Eric.
way. I was just gonna say, I think that absolutely makes sense. It'd be nice to just sort of give it some time, and also like Mark was saying, just wait with the AOE comes back so we can see where Danville's landing. And then hopefully the state will rally and we can do it that way. I will say, like, over the past 2 months, I've probably talked to like 60 people in this town, and every single one of them is like, what's gonna happen? What can we do? Like, we don't have the money to do this. There's like a lot of, as you can imagine, fear, concern, hesitancy around like plunging in with that. My whole thing on it, and I'm totally on board for, we're gonna be camping and gone and summer and all the stuff, like all of us, but what the immediate needs are. Obviously, some of them are being addressed. Is there anything else that needs to sort of come in from an urgency standpoint and be handled soon versus reconvening at some point down the road? That would be the only thing I would put out there, just from a school level, what your guys' concerns are besides HVAC, lighting, et cetera.
Well, I think there are some that we've talked about in those meetings that we can address because we simply,
Right.
like the idea that we don't have enough space for our own.
Well, of
preschool
course,
students.
that one, we can't go there right now,
Right, so
but I didn't
I
know
mean,
if there were
that-
like any other like urgency things like this HVAC situation. And did Sean share with you guys the Inflation Reduction Act paperwork that I had shared from Mike Pichek that had some funding structure in there? I gave it to Sean, he was gonna look into it.
Then you let me-
I don't know if that came out with you guys, but basically in the Inflation Reduction Act, there was some heating, cooling, et cetera, like potential access to funding there. So I don't know where he went with it or not.
So when it comes from up there, then it all trickles down through the AOE, and then everything just comes through the same pathway.
Yeah.
So the money just it gets put in the one door and then it comes down.
Yeah, no, I just
So
didn't know,
yeah.
because he was gonna look into it. I didn't know if you guys had heard from him, so apparently not.
No, we're chasing them on lights, and we're chasing them on
Okay.
HVAC systems, so we're keeping them busy.
Yes, no, I know.
Alright.
Okay, cool.
And then Rob, Eric and then Rob.
To Jim's point, I'm good with a summer break. That's all fine. I will say I am not in favor of waiting for the AOE to come up with anything because fortune favors the prepared. And when something gets announced in the AOE, there's going to be a gold rush to get everything they can out of the AOE. And if we are prepared with a vision and a plan that we are coalescing around, I think that we've made a lot of great strides with that. And Rob has really pushed us to have and Katie as well, to have really good master plan and start to think about through that. If we're prepared with that and have those things already understood of where we want this done, or even we go so far as to engage architects to even start pricing this thing out, then we're going to be way more prepared if the AOE comes back and says, here's our pool of money, and here's how you can get it. If we're already prepared, then we can get ahead of it. We can get it cheaper because there is also a gold rush around contractors in this state if that happens as well. So I think yeah, we should keep marching to the beat of our drum rather than the AOEs and figure out what we want to do and how we can get there within our constraints. And if we can get more money, then stupendous. We can dream bigger, but.
And I think also, if you don't mind me saying on this, with the long-term vision, which is so important, and I think we absolutely need to be, gearing up towards, is keeping in mind that the AOE, if they get anyone, if there ever is a plan that actually comes through, we might get maybe 20% coverage, 10%, 20%. It's not like
We don't know
it's
what
gonna
the
be
distribution.
100% situation. So still to be realistic, it can't be like this full on like our dream.
Yeah, we're not, yeah.
But like a realistic long-term future vision would be huge.
Yeah, I agree with the delaying clause. We did reach kind of a good direction at our other meeting. In that we thought, okay, we have a new building. Maybe it's not the earlier grades, but maybe it's a high school that you would have students to walk to. And that it would be in a place where it have to be in a master or a new building eventually. And then it was asked, well, who owns the adjacent property? And I haven't talked to the guy. And he bought it long ago. And he got with other guys who said, maybe this is the place for both. So it would be a relief valve for that overall master, if that was our direction. But that's off the record. I don't know. I don't know if that would be off. The land.
Okay. And Katie?
Summer break is fine, but I agree with Eric that if we've made some kind of movement, we should just leave all that and start over again.
So do you think, Katie, Eric, Allison, and Rob, that at our upcoming meeting on June 20th, 21st, so June 21st, that we can then say to the group, we want to push for an architect, or something from an actual drawing?
I think we need to do Tim's idea first, which
Yeah.
is the strategic plan vision. That is kind of what I'm getting from Eric. It's not necessarily- We're not going to the architect to come together, the board come together on what we think the long-term plan is.
Because I'm a build a preschool guy. I'm not a build a
I know.
high school guy.
I know.
So,
Yeah. But, and then the question is if we bring in, an astronaut for that. I think we can be all right on our own, like we did.
Yeah.
Before, as we broke up in groups. That was very, I think we can do it.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so June 21st on the agenda, we'll start talking about strategic planning.
Yeah.
And then the June 21st also on the agenda is let's value our summer.
I don't want to add to just thinking about requests that come on from programming and hiring and building requests, if we have that strategic plan and that path forward, and we can use that as a way, instead of it feeling a little bit scattered, like we're doing on the fly. It's a guide where we can say, yes, this is supporting what we want to do around Danville Works and whatnot, and that's something that we feel is important. We do want to keep that in our 5-year plan. I think that's really important to think about the building and programming and what we see for our community going forward for the next 3 to 5 years as a first step.
And I would just throw out there that, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I don't know if you can make it. You maybe said you can't do the 21st. I cannot do the 21st, unfortunately. I'd love to be a part of it, but if I can't, I can't. So.
I missed the last one.
Yeah, I know. It's part of how it goes.
We
so.
can't all be at all.
No, exactly.
All right, so I think you guys go with that for the plan, building committee? That's the idea, is that we don't lose the momentum, we don't give it away, but also we give people some evaluation at the time. Board, cool? Everybody fine? Okay, so that is the building committee, and now Thomas. You know, Thomas is doing a great deal of work here on, this is your senior project, right? Thomas's senior project was about how to better his own job. It's auspicious because his job is very nebulous. And so I'm going to turn it over to Thomas. You ready?
So should I join the Zoom?
So you can.
How is this gonna work? With technology?
Do you want to? If you want to send it, if you want to send it to me, I can slide my computer over. If you just join the Zoom real fast and get promoted up.
I'll do that.
I
don't know that.
And then you're busy with that.
But you should.
I will add while he does this, that Thomas
Why
also
can't-
joined the building committee and
Why
not
can't you
just
share it?
school board meetings.
So he's not a panelist.
I'm not in the Zoom.
Yeah,
He went above and beyond.
Oh, the other two.
he
Right.
did indeed. And so what? So while he's trying to join the Zoom, there's been several meetings with Thomas and several people inside of the building about how to do this and how to improve his position and how he was given a position that was very nebulous. He was given a position where he didn't have a lot of guidance, and he was given a position where he didn't always know what to do. And so he found a way to do what he could. And one of the things that he found in his doing was that the next person in line needed to have definition. And so he took it on as a senior project to help us, the board and the school, define this role and to define the grading aspect of this role that his father wrote into the policy that we're currently following. Because that was also left without really a lot of guidance. And so I went to several meetings with Thomas, Dave, Simon Fisher, Rachel Beach about this, about how to define this. And so some of this is what we're going to see and some of this is the results. Stalling for you. Stretching.
I think a letter of appreciation from the board stating everything you just said. If we needed to use it as a reference for something like that,
Sure.
it'd be something that he could carry on to. So. Whatever you said.
If you don't have to do this. He needs to give permission for Zoom to share. it.
I'm just messing with the computer settings right now.
Oh,
Got
yeah,
it.
you get to
Yeah.
anything else. Local to his.
Okay. I got it.
Let it record your screen.
Okay.
And then you put Zoom.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry.
All right. You got time, man. So I got an email. Bruce says he's on the call and he'd like to be able to talk.
That must be his.
So that must be his cell number. I just got an email.
If you want me allowed to.
Yeah, so that'd be great if we just while we're waiting, Bruce is going to talk about the last subject. Bruce?
He's muted. Still muted.
Oh, that's on his end.
You should, yeah,
And no, because it's a phone, you have to dial star or something. I'm looking. No,
you should just be able to
Or can you?
hold the thing or unmute it.
yeah, 'cause
Can't
I'm-
promote it with somebody on the telephone.
Bruce, try *6. Yeah. Yeah, it should be. Oh. Yeah, Bruce, all I'm coming up with is that *6 should be what gets you unmuted.
So if you figure it out, Bruce, just hold on and then talk when we're done. We're gonna go to Thomas's presentation, please. All right, Thomas, you're on.
My screen sharing is on.
I
might just have to do I might just have to, oh, there it is. I might just have to do the presentation like this.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's fine.
can't read the little microphone. Oh, okay. Okay. So this is my,
Yes, sir.
okay. So that's- All right, so should I do this? Or?
Yeah, talk us through it a little bit. Talk us through the why, talk us through, because you've given this, you've given this already, but
Okay.
let us know why, where you work, why you do, if you can.
Let's see. So I guess I'll start here.
Yes.
So the goals of my project, I was trying to kind of make the student board representative position more organized and structured. Because in my experience, things a little bit unclear sometimes. Job. And then the other thing there, create a great assessment application. That was some ideas. I'm not very loud, am I? I get it.
You're doing great.
The small room. And here's kind of the motivation behind my project. I became a student representative toward the beginning of my junior year. And when I joined, I found the role somewhat unorganized and unclear. I don't really think I had that much guidance to really figure it out at all. So I wanted to prove it. Prove it. So some challenges I faced with my project. I at first I was really not sure where I wanted to take it. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. I had developed my own idea about what the role of student representative is. So here's some things that I did. Process. This was a survey that I sent out around December, I think. That's when I did this. Sent to students, staff, and community. Collected information on what people thought the role of student representative should be. I used this to develop my own perspective. Student representative position. I had a lot of meetings. Oh, sorry. I pressed the next button. I had a lot of meetings. One of them, all of them were kind of discussing the project, and how we, like, I don't know. Yeah. You can leave it at, you had a lot of meetings. Okay. We all know what that's like.
Yeah, they all know that.
But in one of the meetings, I can discuss what who could be a student rep and why there were constraints in the policy about which students could be chosen for student rep by the board. and who could be put forward. And we talked along the way about some of the changes that we could. And then your argument always came back with there's no description for the job. There's no way to chase this credit. And so you're always looking for ways to grade yourself. So maybe you talk to us about your rubric.
All right. Let's see. Be able to real quick. I got. I don't know if that's big enough. This is a draft. I think I might have edited it a little bit, but it should be pretty similar. So what I'm sorry. No, you're okay. Don't worry. I do this for everything they present. Don't worry about it. This is who I am. You're fine. Okay. Hey. So, the rubric that I made, it's really based on some kind of ideas that I have. A big part of it was student outreach. As kind of a way I felt like I could have done better at my own job is like actually doing some kind of student outreach, like reaching out to students, seeing what they would want recorded or like, I'm representing the students and I feel like that's, should be a part of the job, I feel like. I don't know, I tried to leave it kind of flexible towards having one or multiple student representatives because, we like to have multiple student representatives, but let's see. Some of the other stuff on there is just stuff like showing up for board meetings.
But that's what the idea is for the grading. Is he here? Is he participating? Whose voice is he giving? And that's the hardest part of the job is that we ask you, what do you think, Thomas? But we're not asking, we're asking what do the students think?
Yeah.
But we don't ask what the students think. But a lot of that is this a guy that we can ask what he thinks, or is he even paying attention? And so we appreciate you paying attention, but there's got to be a way to quantify. And I think that's where we were with the grading. Is somebody has to tell you what you're not doing in the review along the way. So whoever's grading you for the history credit, you have to pay.
In your vision, how often would you self-assess on this rubric? Like, would you see this like after every meeting you do this or? Let's see, I think it could be used that way. I feel like some of the things like the attendance scale there is like I don't attend most, I attend some. Some of those might be more spaced out because you can't really. And if you wanted to do a grade for every meeting, I guess you could, but.
So maybe by semester?
No, but I feel like it could just be a general thing over like a semester or a year. Would probably be a better way to do that. Yeah, I really appreciate how spelled out this is and that it has multiple steps. I'm a Ruben guy. I love it. I love it. So I really appreciate that. Then I do think it has the adaptability too, where it's one of those that you could use it once a semester or however you want to use it that way. But it could also be something that maybe someone if somebody didn't think you were doing the job well, they slide it in front of you and be like, it's time to do an assessment. And it lets you see where your gaps are, right? So if it was like, we've heard a lot about you, but we haven't heard a single thing from the elementary school, that's covered. Are you asking other students about it? It's covered. Are you at the meeting? It's covered. So it's one of those that could be used sort of both ways as like a nudge, but also as an assessment tool. And that's hard to accomplish. And that's a really, I'm a rubrics guy. I like this one.
But I feel like you really attack the problem of, can you quantify whether or not the student rep is doing his job? And I think that this is taking some great steps toward that. And like, not all the steps, but that was your job, was you stepped a great deal.
Yeah, that's great.
So I thought the rubric was one of your better parts. And with the video, it's easy for somebody else to come in and grade you if they decide that they need to go back in. Show me your presentation, here's your paperwork, here's your particular part of the meeting. See what you get. All right. Is there anything else you want to show us on there?
Yeah, so in addition to the rubric, I made like a job description document. This isn't it. I think it's like it's not here, so I don't know if I want to pull it up or just talk about it a little bit. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like the main document that I made. Like it just kind of outlines everything that I've been thinking about, like the application, the kind of like the expectations, and like the rubric reports, going to meetings, reaching out to students, big mix. And then a little bit about the mentor position. So is in the,
That's one of us. That you're not getting.
Right.
Yeah, I know, it was me. You're not getting. it. I know.
Where's his?
Maybe take it back.
What about this guy? But one of the challenges for our new upper school principal is going to be to find us a second ninth grader who's going to be able to come on. And so what we have now is we have a framework to show somebody, this is the job that can get you a credit. That our outgoing gentleman put together. And this is something that you can work on, and this may be also a built into your project and then move forward. So really useful prompts, I really appreciate it.
So I made a sample application. It's really rough. Like, someone could go in and it's definitely not a complete thing, but it's something, I guess. I made a really small student report template. I've been using this the past couple of times.
It's great.
Those are helpful things. Like
And
that
so it
framework.
can kind of help.
I don't know if you've noticed, but everybody else uses the template too. Like they're all doing the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Filling in the blanks.
Yeah. 100%.
Question becomes, how good is your font? Because that's really.
Yeah. How Zazzy you fixed it.
What's your font? Yeah, I mean, I just made that so you could, if you didn't, like, so you kind of have a starting place to make a report.
Yep.
Yeah. See, other thing I made like just I made a presentation, like a really short presentation about the job of the student representative. Explains what the board is, what the position is, why the position is important, and the responsibilities.
So is this something you would use to try to recruit? Is that what this would be, this presentation would be used for?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Be just a little short, like explainer. kind
Well,
of.
one of the things that we talked about in the meetings was this is Thomas reviewed it. Because this is something Thomas presented for us.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's.
I-
he-
I'm not gonna be here.
Yeah,
I mean, Right.
and,
Yeah.
but that he's given us something, because we currently have nothing.
So have you shared these tools, or will you once you're finalized with me and Dave? It's like that we have them to use them. But they're great.
And then each. Right.
And yeah,
We have, I have them somewhere.
There-
Yeah, I think I sent,
We had the drafts around. and
yeah, if you were, yeah, I think I sent them to the people who were in the meeting,
Mhm.
like a couple weeks ago.
Good.
And so, and eventually I'm gonna have to transfer ownership of them so they don't get deleted by Google.
Right.
But, I can share them. I can share them with people who want. Who don't have them already.
I think that this belongs.
Or I could send them out
These belong to
again.
the upper school principal pretty quick, because this is gonna land on her. And so.
Yeah, we can share them with her now. She's
Right.
got the important stuff.
So you can just make a copy of them and then you don't.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. That,
Yeah.
really just, you don't need to worry about that.
All right.
But awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's pretty much. All I have.
So I think, again, like you were challenged, you found out where you were challenged and you attacked the problem with, logically, and you give us something to work with, and it's really, really useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, all
Very good.
future student rep. Folks won't have. to
But they have
struggle with that
they've got a
thing
job description, they've got templates, they've got an idea of what they have to do, and an idea of how to be told when they're not doing it. That's great.
You got a rubric?
And the
Any
next
questions
one's
for
gonna
Tom?
be your rubric.
Congratulations. Well, good.
Good job, Thomas.
I really appreciate it.
Wonderful job.
Who are you giving that to?
You missed it. It's already been shared with the.
All right. There you go. You're right on me.
Highest bidder.
Didn't throw your name cemented on there.
Yeah, copyright. I mean, I'm not.
No, I'm not either. That's the type of stuff.
Seriously.
That is the type of stuff that gets shared district to district.
Right.
When somebody puts the
Your
thought.
name.
into it,
Yep.
into it like that. So,
Yeah.
I know it's on the cover page of that you should really, yeah, we should have it as a footer on everything.
In fact, somebody should give it to me because I get if a superintendent somewhere else in the state puts a query on, says, does anybody have guidelines for student representation?
Right.
Give it to them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Seriously.
no, but it's, I will see that used in my district, I guarantee.
But before you know it, it'll show up as like the Russell Board Association's model
Right.
thing, and you'll be like, wait, that's mine.
Yeah. So put your name on it.
Yeah.
Put your name on it.
I'll put my name on
Everything.
everything.
All right, so the next item on our agenda is an executive session where we're gonna ask everybody to leave, but there are some people here, and I wonder if I might want to put public comment first, so that if you're leaving, you can go. So there are two ladies here, I don't know your names, and I need them for the records anyway, so can you ladies tell me your names before we go?
It's, Rachel,
And your last name, Rachel?
Odell,
Odell. And ma'am?
Carol. Epaphroditus.
Help on that.
Everyone got it.
I got Carol, I think, no E?
No,
Okay. Capricornite.
Yeah.
CAPER. Okay.
KAP.
OU.
OU KR
K
ANIDIS.
ANIDIS.
Oh, I never would have.
All right. And you here to make a comment? Are you here just, are you here to enjoy the show, or did you have something to say?
so, yeah, so I guess,
Okay, and my further question, do you have students in the school? Are you,
so I'm a mom.
Uh-huh.
And my daughter will be starting school soon.
okay, in Danville, or are you,
I'm not sure.
okay. So you have questions about,
So,
I just have to clarify whether this is a conversation that would involve the school board, or whether you're better
Okay.
served speaking to the principal. Because
okay,
this is, because we're mostly doing policy here, and so a lot of times,
so I'm not sure if it has to do with policy. I see you have like a pronouns, gender pronouns thing, and it kind of has to do with that. At like what age do you start teaching that here?
so yeah, that would be a question that you could ask, and then you could get answered probably best via in a conversation with an email, as opposed to necessarily having that be a public comment, because public comment generally is made and then we just accept it. We don't, this is not a question and answer session.
Yeah.
So I would invite you to ask your questions of Mr. Schilling here, and maybe he can talk to you as we're going out, because those questions are better asked and answered
I'm sorry.
one
who
on
is
one.
that?
So I'm Dave Schilling. I'm responsible for grades 7 through 12. Sarah Welch is responsible for grades 3
Pre-K
through
through
6.
Perfect, yeah.
So it might be,
What age is your kiddo?
She'll be in preschool.
Preschool.
Yes. I have some, I don't know if I should share them. Just some things, from a different school that they're, giving to kids in 3rd grade. I don't know if I should pass them out.
so no, because that wouldn't be, we wouldn't have any control over that
Okay.
in this school district. And so in this case, that would be, again, like I would invite you to open the dialogue with, if it's a preschooler, with Sarah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's not in the school district?
No, no, she's in the school district, but I don't,
You have a hand up.
if you want to handle something for the school board, we generally restrict public comments to people that are currently stakeholders. So these are questions about a prospective stakeholder where you have a question for the administration.
Okay,
And so the administration in this case would be Ms. Welch, probably in a conversation that wasn't at the board room.
and
How do we contact
how do we, yeah.
Like we're about,
And just to be clear, preschool would be Danville residents here. Are you moving to Danville? Or do you live in Danville?
I live in Danville, but I'm not, I don't think that I'm obligated.
No,
I
that's
just,
the preschool first time. No,
I'm
that's-
gonna look around because I'm like a protected mom, so.
Sure.
that's-
I'm sure how's it that machine that you-
Yeah. One of the things that they'll point to is our handbook online, and there's a lot of the things that you can see already that are already in print. And so Sarah will take you from here, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
Any additional public comment?
I think I'm good.
Okay, hearing none, thank you, ma'am, thank you for your understanding there. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna go into an executive session, or I'd like to go into an executive session specifically to discuss school security, and that would fall under 1 VSA 31310. And this is the security or emergency response measure, the disclosure of which could jeopardize the public safety. So, we have a proposal that we're gonna talk about there, and I would need a motion to go into executive session to discuss school security.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session at 7:45. You need the time.
I'll need it in a minute.
Oh.
So I have a motion to go into an executive session. I have a second to go into executive session to, based on 1 VSA 313 and 10. So all in favor of going to executive session at 7:45, please say aye.
Aye.
Hold on.
Good night, Tom.
Thank you, Thomas.
All right,
I'll get
so
to
we are
go.
not in executive session.
So,
8:03.
and we're back on the record at 8:03, started recording again.
All right, so based on the discussion we had, I'm looking for a motion here. Okay.
Make a motion, that we, give them up $15 for school security. Out of the unsafe.
Out of the unreserved fund. Second here. So all in favor of the motion to allocate 10,215 out of the unrestricted funds for school security, please say aye. Right.
Hi.
Motion carries on that. Now, everybody who's got this piece of paper, hand it back. I can.
I'm gonna keep mine if you don't mind.
You can keep yours.
Yeah.
You can keep yours and the other one here. And what's back over. All right. So with that.
Don't mind my notes.
Public input's done. Future agenda item. HVAC. School security.
We have to figure out a date for July or.
We're getting the next meeting date next. So is there anything else that,
70 fund request.
70 fund request potentially?
Possible executive session or no, Sarah? For that
Yeah.
one?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
let's put it on.
School security within the exec section as a possibility, same DSA rules. It's possible there will be a hiring update, or hopeful there's a hiring update. But if there's a hire, then we'll do it the other way.
When they put the playground in, they did a huge fundraiser. Is there any funds left in that?
Then I go to the Dunkin' Donuts, pick the funds, there wasn't all there.
I mean, I don't know when was that
Who
put
was-
in.
I wasn't around then.
When was that date?
Something, oh, my kids are 20 years ago.
Yeah,
That's a while.
yeah, not for a while.
Yeah. It is.
There's some more money sitting around. You know, you say,
Mike did a really thorough job combining them down.
so can we put, so let's put that on the agenda that we'll look again at, the unencumbered funds. Yeah, unrestricted. So let's have a funding update from Mike.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna start talking about a date.
And that's one of those, like, he doesn't have to be here.
Yes, no, just a piece of paper.
But you have it.
Send us a piece of
Yeah,
paper.
would you find out who did that project that long ago? And maybe they would, if they're still alive, I mean, they have all the contacts and stuff like that, but they raised all the money.
I'm gonna venture a guess that 20 years ago, they weren't paying that much attention to it. If there was leftover money working, but
I imagine, I mean, I don't
Always
know.
check it out.
they probably weren't doing
Enough
fund accounting
fundraiser.
back then.
For the play,
I think we'll be.
no,
okay.
for the playgrounds, is that what?
No, this is just for the, just to clean up the basketball court.
They're going to the 70 fund thing.
I thought you were talking about the playgrounds, like the swings and the
No,
slides.
no, just
just
the court.
the basketball.
Just
right?
basketball.
Just the basketball. And so we're gonna see, you're gonna find out papers to figure out if we have a legal opinion on whether the basketball court counts. And so maybe we'll get an update. That's
Can we change that instead of playground to outdoor basketball? And as part of having outdoor basketball is for practice, and therefore it can be practice makes perfect. It can be considered under competitive.
so we need to find out.
Perfect practice.
We're seeking a legal opinion on that. So that's what we're headed on that one. Once we figure out on that.
If you decide you need to, that's it. You gotta give a regular definition, not about what single funds charter is. Yeah.
So we'll have a 70 fund update on the agenda about the outdoor basketball above the school. Practice. Call it practice. Okay, and so we'll do it that way. And now for future meeting agenda. In August, now what we have traditionally done in the past, because the August meetings for this, they occur during VSA stuff. VSA and Vermont Principal Association both have their meetings in the first week of August. So we can't have an August meeting. And then the July meeting occurs this particular go around on July the 4th, which so we can't do on that. So I would like to look to see if we can figure out a meeting sometime in the middle of July, like the 19th or the 18th. But a lot of this is dependent first on Mark's schedule.
I'll be in Maine. You can meet without me.
He'll be in Maine and we can meet without him. Is anybody available to meet on the 18th or the 19th of July? If you aren't, say so.
There's a possibility I will not be.
I'll be back the following week.
The 25th?
I'm done.
Can you zoom it? Will you zoom it?
I will not. I will be in Oregon.
There you go, Wi-Fi over there.
Dixie Cup does its first.
Okay, so I can't skip 2 months of meetings, so.
Okay.
And I can do the 18th or the 19th. Those are those.
What about later in the week of July 4th?
I am available later.
Huh?
The 11th is gonna be at the CCSD.
I'll also come that week.
So later in the week of July the 4th, July the 5th and the 6th, who's
I can do
available?
the
then?
6th, but I can't do the 5th.
I'm not as important anymore because Natalie will have started then, but I'm gone from the 4th through the 11th.
I can't do 6th. How about the 12th?
I'm July is not good. So you might have to meet without them. Yeah, that's okay.
July 12th, right?
July the 12th.
That's what it is to be
I will be
teacher.
here July.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll be around that.
July the
I will
12th?
be teaching.
July the 12th?
The CCSD meetings the 11th.
I assume is the CCSD meeting on the 11th? For you? Or are they on summer?
I'm not having any meetings that week because I'm gonna be in Maine.
I thought you were meeting on the 18th.
I'm going for 2 weeks.
Man.
And there's no Wi-Fi in Maine.
Would you like my wife's phone number?
1 week in Maine is enough.
No,
If you're buying the same lobsters, they have a price
But
shop.
I've never
You're paying,
yeah, but I'm paying $3 a piece for them.
no, you're not, you're paying a lot more for
They're
it.
fresher.
Are you getting $3 lobsters?
From the
Where we
guy in the
buying
truck
them in.
still in the
Literally
middle.
picking them up out of here.
Yeah, no, I actually wanted to go there. That's what I'm gonna go back, come in secret.
Good cop.
Rope Bluff outside of Machias.
Oh, that's up there.
Yeah.
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 There is no Wi-Fi there.
Yeah.
I think there's no any fire.
Well,
Wednesday the 12th, July the 12th, who, raise your hand if you can be available for a meeting on July the 12th.
It'll be remote, but I can do it.
So that's,
That looks great. You guys have fun.
so we're gonna meet to discuss the HVAC system, but with no quotes. That's fine, so that might get tabled again. If you're not gonna be here, that might get tabled.
Oh, right.
He's got.
Well, I might be able to give you the information. I don't know what Mike's doing. I could send him.
Can
to
we
talk
do
about
like
it.
can we do like the last week of June or the first week of the second
So
week
how
of
about the
August?
28th of June?
Why can't we go longer without a meeting? Just out of curiosity, what's pressing on that?
We can't go
agenda?
longer without a meeting because we also can't meet in August. So do you want to try to meet
But
the
could we,
first?
could
Okay,
we?
let's go to August. Let's forget July. Let's go to August because July sounds like the thing.
August can be worse for me, that's all right.
Yeah, I'll get this.
Why don't you guys,
Wrong with us.
while we're still in the pandemic, don't you guys stay home? Nobody?
Um, Didn't you remember meeting up into the end of June last year?
We,
Didn't you remember July meeting up to the end of June?
we must have had to, but that, we still have to schedule August, so we can't meet in August either. So who can meet on June the 28th?
Hold on. Just so we all know, we do have the building.
The building committee is June the 21st.
think I'm good.
I can meet anytime that week except that month. Except the 26th.
So do you guys want 27th, 28th, or
Either,
pick one?
I'll be a maybe for that one, but.
To be where?
Maybe.
maybe, she'll be a
Oh.
maybe. Look at the exciting.
I prefer 27.
What state is that?
Okay, so how about 27th, Dave prefers 27th, but I have actually something definitive from the 27th. And how about the 27th, folks?
Sure.
27 for our July meeting, and then from there we'll figure out.
Oh, I can
Right,
definitely.
but
do it.
June
You
27th
won't be in Cancun,
Right. for the
June
July. meeting.
27th is our next meeting. It'll be a
With
special
nothing
meeting.
pressing, it'll be 22 minutes, that's all.
If we don't have the HVAC
27th.
stuff.
Well, I mean, that might be, it might be tricky to get folks that.
Yeah,
If you want to
So
use that,
June
it's
27th.
June 27th.
so June, yeah.
Do you have a paper address book on
I
there?
don't want to hear it. Okay?
Yes.
Electronic isn't working. So I'm trying to
I'm
like,
one of those in the Smithsonian.
yep,
June.
Yep.
27th.
I got my chisel out.
Same thing right here.
Thank
So
you.
June 27th, 6 o'clock is our next meeting. June 27th, 6 o'clock. Okay, all right.
Skipping July.
Now we're
And
done.
you'll figure out the August.
We'll figure out August after that. We haven't, we don't need 2 months. Okay. Now, because we know that, I entertain a motion to adjourn at 8.
Someone.
Second? Second. Here, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned 8:30.
That is-